Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Joice Christine Bailey Lewis talking to you again about life, the past, present, and the future. Today I want to talk about race relations because I think that's becoming a topic now that is so difficult to understand and yet so necessary to understand. Let me talk about a little bit about the past and present first and see if we can come up with some suggestions for the future. Right now, I cannot fathom why it is that some people do not understand why Black people are disgruntled with what's going on in this country. They wonder why we're upset. I look at it a lot of times and it's like the husband and the wife. The husband just knocks the wife across the room and then he wonders why she's mad. Well, the one thing we have not done that would probably happen in that situation, we have not gotten up and done anything to harm the person who just hit us. What we've tried to do over the last 400 years is to dig ourselves out of this hole that we've been put in. And we have been trying to get our children ready for every next generation. And we pushed real hard to train them to get along in this world and to do better than the past generation. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes this next generation goes back, but we go forward and back a little and forward and back a little, but we're still going forward. And let me tell you, Black people are a group actually to be marveled at. Because if you say to yourself, if I were beaten up all the time, if I were killed and hanged and raped and treated with disdain and made to work and not get paid, and even after being freed from slavery, made to work and not being paid equal to what other people were being paid, to just be treated awful. Even you can't drink the same water. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't get a loan for a house like everybody else. Your education is bad. Just working to make the Black people suffer some more like they have done something to somebody. We haven't. We haven't harmed a hair on your head. We raised your children. We've cooked your dinner. We've cleaned your house. We've driven your car. And we've said, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And when you had a downfall and you couldn't get up, we helped you get up. There was a time, and I write this in my book, My Ancestral Voices, and all of you should get a copy of that because I tell you, you don't know anything until you listen to the people who've been there. And I was there all my young life, struggling to become something that I could rise up out of the type of life that we had to live during that time. And I tell you, there were times when we had to make do and we had to suffer, especially during the Depression. Nobody helped us. Nobody helped the Black person. We had to make it on our own. And there was a day when I remember I was a little girl. The white neighbor came over to the house and she said to my mother, "So your husband told me to come over and ask you for some food. Now, this was a white woman. She had a husband. She had a family, but she was starving. Her husband had been gone for 2 weeks, and she didn't have any place to turn, but she turned to Daddy. And she said, "Would you please help me?" And he sent her over to the house. We lived over in the woods. She lived on the big road. My mother gave her some food, and I talk about it in my book. She gave us some of everything we had. She shared it with her. And the lady cried and went home and fed her family. Now, we were poorer than poor, but we were willing to share. Remember, also, an 80-year-old woman came walking down the road by our sweet potato patch one day. And she said, "Lord, I ain't had no sweet potatoes in a long time." And Daddy took 2 big hands of sweet potatoes, walked over to the fence and handed them to her and said, "Here, ma'am, take these." She tried to give him some cornmeal she had in her pocket that had been given to her by the county. And Daddy said, "No, ma'am, I don't want to take your meal. You take that home and cook for yourself and enjoy the sweet potatoes." That woman went on down the road. I think she cried, but she went on down the road with her head hanging down, because it was not fitting for a white woman to take anything from a black man, because we were supposed to be poorer than they were. And we were, but we were willing to share and to show our love for our fellow man. Now, there were other people that I remember. One man in particular who was angry because the slaves had been freed just when he was born, just when he would have become the heir to the big plantation. His father, after the Civil War, had to sell his land off, and so happened to have sold it off to my great-grandfather, a black man who had been a slave. This son resented that so badly, and he didn't know how to make crops or how to do anything because he had expected to be rich. So he got sharecroppers. He had 2 sharecroppers on his land. That was all the land he had left. And the other family, who had a weak father, would allow this man to kick his children and to treat them badly, because he was reminiscing over what he would have done had he had slaves. But he made a mistake. He kicked my father. And my father, being known for his strength and his ability to carry big loads, hit him up under the chin and picked him up, picked his whole 350-pound body up off the ground, and he landed in the woodpile. Of course, now he was going to kill my father and get his Ku Klux Klan brothers to help him. Didn't turn out that way, because my father was a well-liked man in the community, and this man was hated by whites and everybody. So this is what I want to tell you. We have a president now who ought to be hated by every person in this country. And yet there's a little over 30% of people who would drink the Kool-Aid and go follow him wherever he said, "Let's go," because he's speaking their language, the language of this man who decided that he had been taken, all of his wealth had been taken when the slaves were free. He wanted the slaves to be out there working. And that's what we got in this president. So I want to talk about the future. We cannot afford 4 more years of this. Our nation will be destroyed completely. We will be in the hands of Russia and anybody else who want to pick up the pieces. So those of you who are not willing to drink the Kool-Aid, those of you who think that there is something you can do to save this country, let's get on with it. Let's get out there and do what we need to do to save this country. And voting for Biden will get us on the way. Because then we'll have somebody who believes in right and righteousness. We'll have somebody who will want to see, who will want to see this country in good shape. We will have somebody who is not willing to give our country away to Russia. And Lord, have mercy upon our souls if we don't get out there and do what we need to do. Let's go vote. Let's vote early. Let's make sure our votes are counted. And Trump said something about if you vote and you're not sure your vote counted, go see about it. Well, you do the same thing. Those 70% of us, once we vote, if we think our vote has not counted, get out there and check on it. And make sure that when the votes are counted, that we are represented. I've talked enough for today. I'll talk with you next week. God bless you. Now, I want to remind you, I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I want you to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because I have a story to tell. And I'm talking to people. I can't see you, but I'm sure you're out there. And I also want you to buy my book, because it talks to you too. It tells you what was going on and how we got in the fix we're in. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles. You can get it on Amazon and on eBay. Now I'll have it on 1 or 2 more engines later on, but remember, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, and eBay for right now. And follow me on my YouTube. And let's talk again next week. God bless you.